Subscribe now for more stories like this. Once upon a time, in a secluded valley hidden between two towering mountains, there was a village unlike any other. The village thrived with life and laughter, and it was said that every person, no matter how young or old, was gifted with incredible courage. But this bravery wasn't innate, it was earned, nurtured, and passed down through generations. At the center of this village stood a colossal tree, known as the Tree of Trials, and its roots ran deep into the earth, winding through the village's foundations. This tree was believed to have magical powers, granting those who faced their deepest fears beneath its branches the strength to overcome them. Among the villagers was a young boy named Leo, who had heard countless stories about the Tree of Trials. Every evening, as the stars glittered above, Leo would sit by the village square, where the elders shared tales of their bravery beneath the tree. These stories filled Leo's heart with admiration, but they also left him with a gnawing feeling of inadequacy. Leo was not like the others. He had a fear he dared not speak aloud: the darkness. While other children would venture into the woods at dusk, exploring the night, Leo would sit trembling in his room, imagining the terrifying creatures lurking in the shadows. He feared the unknown, the silence, and the eerie sounds that echoed in the night. One evening, as the village prepared for the annual Festival of Courage, where villagers shared their greatest tales of bravery, Leo sat alone by the tree. He gazed up at its enormous branches, swaying gently in the evening breeze. The tree's bark seemed to shimmer in the moonlight, and its roots pulsed with a quiet energy. It was said that the tree held the memories of every villager who had faced their fears beneath its leaves. Leo sighed deeply. "I'll never be like them," he whispered to himself. "I'm afraid of the dark. How can I ever prove myself brave?" Just then, a soft, warm voice broke the silence. "Bravery doesn't mean the absence of fear, Leo. It means having the courage to face it." Startled, Leo turned around and saw an old owl perched on one of the lower branches of the tree. The owl had a wise, knowing look in its golden eyes. Leo had seen this owl many times before. His name was Oliver, and he was the village's guardian of wisdom. Many sought his advice, and it was said that he had seen every brave soul who had come to the tree over the years. "I know you, young Leo," Oliver continued. "You sit here often, listening to the tales of the others, but never sharing one of your own." "I can't," Leo admitted, his voice trembling. "I'm not brave. I'm terrified of the dark. I could never face the trials beneath the tree." Oliver tilted his head, considering Leo's words. "Ah, the darkness," he said softly. "A fear that many have, though few admit. But the darkness is not your enemy, Leo. It's merely a part of the world, just like the light. The true test is not whether you fear it, but whether you are willing to step into it." Leo's heart raced. But what if something terrible happens? What if the darkness is filled with creatures, or I get lost? Oliver blinked slowly. "What if you find something beautiful instead? What if the darkness reveals wonders that the daylight hides?" Fear is powerful, but so is curiosity. The owl's words lingered in Leo's mind as he sat beneath the tree, staring into the deep shadows of the woods beyond the village. The festival was in full swing, with music and laughter echoing through the air. Yet, Leo felt a tug deep inside him, pulling him toward the very thing he feared. "Will the tree help me?" Leo asked hesitantly. "The tree will support you," Oliver said. "But only you can take the first step. If you want to overcome your fear, you must face it willingly." Leo looked back at the village, where the warm glow of lanterns illuminated the night. Then he looked toward the forest, where the darkness seemed to stretch endlessly, mysterious and silent. With a deep breath, he stood up and made his decision. "I'm going," he said quietly, more to himself than anyone else. Oliver gave a nod of approval and watched as Leo took his first cautious steps toward the edge of the village, where the woods began. The boy's heart pounded in his chest, and every instinct screamed for him to turn back. But he pressed forward, clutching a small lantern that barely pierced the dark. The trees loomed above him, their branches like skeletal hands reaching out. Shadows danced in the periphery of his vision, and every rustle of the leaves sent a shiver down his spine. But Leo kept walking. The further he went, the more he realized that the forest wasn't as menacing as he had imagined. The night was alive with soft sounds, the chirping of crickets, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of small animals in the underbrush. He stopped for a moment to catch his breath, realizing that the forest wasn't completely dark. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting a soft, silvery glow on the path ahead. Fireflies flitted about, their tiny lights blinking like stars brought down to earth. As Leo looked around, he felt a strange sense of peace. The forest, which had once seemed terrifying, now felt almost welcoming. But just as he was beginning to relax, a low growl broke the stillness. Leo froze, his heart leaping into his throat. From the shadows, a pair of glowing eyes emerged. Slowly, a large, menacing figure stepped into the light of his lantern, a wolf. The beast's eyes locked onto Leo, its fur bristling, and its growl deepened. Fear surged through Leo's body, stronger than ever before. He wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. He was paralyzed, staring into the face of his worst nightmare. And then, in the midst of his terror, he remembered Oliver's words. "Bravery is not the absence of fear. It's the courage to face it." Leo took a deep breath and did something unexpected. He didn't run. He didn't scream. Instead, he stood tall and stared back at the wolf, refusing to let his fear control him. For what felt like an eternity, the two stood in silence, the wolf's growl softening into a low rumble. Then, something incredible happened. The wolf's stance relaxed, and its eyes softened. It sniffed the air, turned around, and disappeared into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. Leo stood there, stunned. The danger had passed, and he was still standing. He had faced the darkness and the creature within it, and had not been consumed by fear. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. He had done it. He had faced the thing he feared most, and though his heart still raced, he felt a sense of pride and strength he had never known before. As he made his way back to the village, the forest no longer felt like a place of fear. It was a place of discovery, a place where courage could grow. When Leo returned, the festival of courage was still in full swing. He found Oliver perched on his branch, watching the festivities. "Well?" the owl asked, his golden eyes gleaming with curiosity. "I did it," Leo said, still catching his breath. I faced the darkness. And it wasn't what I thought it would be. It was beautiful. Oliver nodded knowingly. That is the gift of courage, Leo. It reveals the world to us in ways we never imagined. Welcome to the ranks of the brave. From that day on, Leo was no longer the boy who feared the dark. He became a beacon of courage in the village, sharing his story with others who struggled with their own fears. And every time someone faced their fear beneath the great tree of trials, the tree's roots grew a little deeper, and its branches reached a little higher, nourished by the bravery of those who dared to take the first step. Leo's story of facing the wolf spread quickly through the village. People admired his bravery, and soon, others began to seek their own courage under the tree of trials. But something strange started happening in the days that followed. Villagers began to hear whispers at night, soft voices carried on the wind, faint but unmistakable. At first, only a few heard them, but soon, more and more villagers reported strange sounds coming from the forest. Some said they saw glowing eyes watching from the shadows, while others claimed to have seen figures darting between the trees, disappearing before they could be approached. Despite these eerie encounters, Leo's courage remained unshaken. He had faced the darkness once and emerged stronger, and nothing could convince him that there was anything truly dangerous in the forest. But that was before she appeared. One evening, as Leo sat under the great tree, listening to the familiar sounds of the village preparing for the night, a sudden chill filled the air. The once comforting hum of crickets and distant conversation fell silent, replaced by an unnatural stillness. Leo felt it before he saw it, a presence, like the weight of invisible eyes watching him. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice steady but wary. From the shadows, a figure slowly emerged. At first, Leo thought it was another villager, but as the figure stepped into the moonlight, he realized she was not someone he had seen before. She was tall, her hair long and as dark as the night sky, and her eyes glowed faintly with a silvery light that sent a shiver down Leo's spine. She wore a cloak made of shimmering leaves that seemed to change colors with every movement. "I've been watching you, Leo," the woman said softly, her voice like the wind rustling through the trees. "You are braver than most, but you are still only at the beginning of your journey." Leo's heart pounded in his chest. "Who are you?" he asked, unable to tear his eyes away from her. "And what do you mean by the beginning of my journey? I've already faced my fear." The woman smiled, but it wasn't a comforting smile. There was something sad, something ancient in her expression. The wolf you faced was merely a shadow of what lies beyond. The darkness you fear is far deeper than you can imagine, and the forest holds secrets that not even your bravest villagers know. Leo's curiosity warred with his growing sense of unease. "What secrets? What is it you want from me?" The woman's gaze softened as she stepped closer. "I want you to understand, Leo. I want you to see that the trials beneath this tree are only the surface. The forest is alive with magic, and with that magic comes danger. But there is something much greater waiting for those who are willing to go deeper, to face not just the shadows outside, but the darkness within." Leo felt a cold wind brush past him, making the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He had always felt a connection to the Tree of Trials, but now, standing beneath its enormous branches, He realized there was more to this tree than he had ever understood. "What are you saying?" Leo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman reached out, her hand brushing the bark of the tree. "This tree has witnessed countless trials of courage, but there is one trial that no one has faced in centuries. A trial that lies at the heart of the forest, where the tree's roots run deepest. If you wish to truly understand courage, you must go there. You must face the darkness within the heart of the woods." Leo swallowed hard. He had thought that facing the wolf was the end of his journey. But now, he realized that it was only the beginning. He had no idea what awaited him in the heart of the forest, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt, the desire to prove himself once again. "Will you guide me?" he asked. The woman shook her head slowly. "No, Leo. This is a journey you must take alone. But I will leave you with one warning. The forest will reveal what lies within you, your deepest fears, your darkest thoughts. If you are not ready to face them, the forest will consume you." Leo felt a cold dread settle in his stomach, but alongside it, there was a flicker of determination. He had already faced the darkness once. He could do it again. "I'm ready," he said, his voice filled with resolve. The woman smiled again, but this time, there was a glint of approval in her eyes. "Then follow the path beyond the tree. It will lead you to the heart of the forest. But remember, once you begin this journey, there is no turning back." With that, the woman stepped back into the shadows, her figure dissolving into the night like mist. Leo stood alone beneath the tree of trials, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Taking a deep breath, Leo turned toward the path beyond the tree. It was barely visible, a narrow trail winding into the thick woods, illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon. His heart raced as he took his first step, but he didn't hesitate. He had made up his mind. The further he walked, the darker the forest became. The familiar sounds of the village faded into the distance, replaced by the whispering of the trees and the occasional rustle of leaves. Shadows danced around him, and for a moment, Leo felt the familiar pang of fear gnawing at him. But he kept going, remembering the words of the woman, "The darkness will reveal what lies within you." As he ventured deeper, the path seemed to twist and turn in ways that didn't make sense. The trees seemed to close in around him, their branches hanging low, as if they were trying to trap him. Leo's lantern flickered, casting eerie shadows on the ground. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw movement. A figure, tall and slender, darting between the trees. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickened his pace, but the figure followed, always staying just out of sight. Panic started to rise in his chest, and he could feel the darkness pressing in on him. Suddenly, the path opened up into a small clearing, and there, in the center, stood a mirror. Leo stopped in his tracks, his breath catching in his throat. The mirror was tall, almost as tall as he was, and its surface was smooth and black, reflecting nothing but the darkness around it. Without thinking, Leo stepped closer, drawn to the mirror as if by some invisible force. As he peered into its depths, he saw something flicker, an image, faint but unmistakable. It was him, but not the Leo he knew. This Leo was older, his face lined with worry, his eyes filled with fear and regret. What is this?" Leo whispered. The image in the mirror didn't speak, but Leo could feel its presence, an overwhelming sense of dread and sorrow. It was as if the mirror was showing him a future he hadn't yet lived, a future where he had failed to conquer his fears. "No," Leo said, shaking his head. "That's not me. I'm not afraid anymore." But the image didn't disappear. It grew stronger, more defined, until Leo could see every detail: the slump of his shoulders, the weight of unspoken fears, the darkness that clung to him like a shadow. Leo took a step back, his heart pounding in his chest. This was the trial the woman had spoken of. The darkness within him wasn't just the fear of the night, it was the fear of failure, the fear of losing himself to the shadows. "I won't let this happen," Leo whispered fiercely. "I've faced the darkness before, and I'll do it again." Summoning all the courage he had left, Leo stepped forward and placed his hand on the mirror. The cold surface sent a shock through his body, but he didn't pull away. He stared into the eyes of his reflection, refusing to look away, refusing to let the fear consume him. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the image faded. The mirror's surface shimmered and dissolved into nothingness, leaving Leo standing alone in the clearing. The trial was over. Breathing heavily, Leo turned away from the mirror and made his way back toward the village. He had faced the deepest darkness within himself, and though the journey had been terrifying, he had emerged stronger. As he stepped back into the light of the village, the tree of trials loomed above him, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. Leo smiled to himself, knowing that he had unlocked a secret that only the bravest could understand.